Yeah, we spend a lot of money. I mean, like I know I keep harping on it, but we spend a lot of money on training. We spend a lot of money on all this equipment, and I just don't want any of us to come into this sport thinking that, you know what, I'm just going to buy this one thing and that's it. It's just not it if you want your archer to be an elite archer. It's that time again, and it is Raising an Archer with Wendy and Scott. We have a...
Hi.
Yeah. Hey, Wendy, how are you? I guess I could let you talk. I was so busy this weekend, talking so much, and because I didn't have you there to kind of keep me straight, But Wendy, we talked about what is it that what do we want to talk about? And I think Wendy came up with a great one because it's something that we've had to deal with in the last couple months, and it's all about equipment.
With my kid and your kid.
Yep. And what is it? What is
And
it?
other
What
kids.
was that question? What did you think we should discuss?
How do you know when it's time to switch equipment? Not like indoor to outdoor or outdoor to indoor. We've talked about that before, but say someone's outgrown the equipment, or you think something's wrong with the equipment, or you get new equipment and it's just not working right. Those kinds of things. How do you know when to say when?
And that's a great question, because I know that there's times where we have to make a decision on, do we switch releases? When is it time to add more draw length or draw weight? But I think that this even came way to light for us is because Julia, and we've had other kids, and we're going to talk more about it, but we've had Julia, she got a new bow at the beginning of outdoor last year, right? Was it about that time?
Yep.
Maybe about
I think
that time.
so.
Mid-season, or at the end of indoor. It was a significantly newer bow than she had. It was a little different in size. We went from a 37 to a 40-inch bow. She struggled with that bow from day one. We did everything. We tuned. We tried different arrows. We tried all kinds of things. It came to a point where we didn't know what to do. I would say that we probably hung on too long with that bow. And the question isn't it? The question for anybody here is, how long do you go when your archer is struggling? Because she wasn't really struggling with the other bow. There were some issues, with the other bow. But when we went to the new bow, it was just kind of these, it's just the pain of going to a new bow. And it came to the point where we were like, you know what? Let's switch back to our old bow and see what happens.
Yeah, my thing was, well, let's see if it's her or the bow.
Yeah, and it was a great thought. Like, why not? We've seen other kids have the same issues. It's hard when you spend $1,900 on a bow. But let's step back for a second. How much are you spending on travel, on all the other equipment? The most important tool there is your bow. Right. And I know that wasn't an easy decision for you or me to go through it, because we're just like, both of us had a lot of conversations around it, saying, is it her just trying to get used to a bow, or is it really something else? And it was hard to say, okay, is it the bow? And that's one thing that we're finding is that not every bow is for every kid or for every archer.
Right.
That's why they make all these different brands of bows. We thought this was just an easy transition. It was not an easy transition.
No.
I guess even in that case, we've had Julia's a little more mature when it comes to being an archer, because when we came to her, some kids were like, no, they want to stick with that new fancy bow. She was willing to step back into the old bow and see what happens. And it was almost instantaneous. Her scores went up.
I mean, her first shoot after going back to that bow, she hit her personal best that she had whenever she went to the new bow. Meaning that with the old bow, it was that her personal best with this bow before. And so it was like, oh, okay. It's like being with the old friend again.
Yeah.
It's like us when we don't talk for a while and then we...
Right. It takes us 45 minutes to start the podcast because we have to catch up. Yeah, and we had the same issue, and we've learned from this. Like, we've learned from my son, we've learned from Julia, Wendy's daughter. We've learned all this, and I think that as coaches, it makes it very difficult for us to say, hey, we recommended, like, I recommended this specific bow to you guys, and I had to come back saying it's
Because
not
it had
working.
all the bells and whistles, and it was supposed to be the best of the best. And so, everybody wants the best of the best for their archers.
And you assume that it is the best of the best, and you know what? We've seen other archers shoot the exact same bow 100 times better. Like they actually their skills or their scores went up with the new bow.
Right.
I think that us as coaches have to be more aware. Like, for me, I'm much more aware of it, because with that situation, when I saw another one of our archers having the same type of issues, we went ahead. I went to the parents and said,
You were able to recognize it.
I was like, hey, I know I recommended this bow to you. I know you just spent $1,800 on it less than 6 months ago, but if we need to regroup, because she's a better shooter than what this bow is performing right now. And we
Right.
didn't have another bow to fall back on. We went ahead and looked around, found a bow, and it turns out that, bigger bows are not always better bows. Meaning, and I know people were like, yeah, right, yeah, you can always Monday morning quarterback it, but when you have a kid that's shooting a
Right.
35-inch bow and she's shooting it really well, and then you go to you think, okay, and her draw length puts her into let's say a 37-inch bow. There's other factors that you have to take into mass weight of the bow. String angle may not be great. In this case, I
Glad
think
you know all this stuff, because
I think everything did line up, but it just didn't. That bow just did not perform for her, and so when we
it added up, but it didn't match.
yes. On paper, it looked great.
Yeah.
And the one thing we did was, Julia was fortunate enough that we had a bow that we could fall back on. The archery community did great. We reached out to multiple people that we knew that potentially had another brand of bow that we could try and see if it was that bow. And guess what? We put her in the bow, and her scores immediately go up with a new bow, with a different
That's cool.
bow.
Yep.
And it wasn't even new.
Yeah.
It's an older bow. It's like a 2-year-old bow, but it was a smaller bow, 34 inches. It just, and string angle makes a difference sometimes. Mass weight of the bow makes a difference sometimes. It's tough as coaches to come back and say, you know what, I screwed up. I recommended the wrong bow.
No, everybody makes mistakes, and you try because you wanted the best, and so there's nothing wrong with that. You wanted the best, and the best just didn't work out, and the best wasn't the best for these kids, and that's all there is to it. There's nothing else with that.
And I think we feel bad. Like, I think that parents, my recommendation to parents in these cases is that if you're willing to get whatever equipment you have to get them back to where they were, you need to make sure you communicate that to your coach. Because I think us as coaches do feel bad. Like, we recommended an $1,800 bow and it didn't work. Like, it's very hard for us to come back and say, I screwed up for this kid specifically. Like, I say I screwed up. On paper, everything, we made the decision. I say screw up's the wrong word, because we made the decision.
Yeah, I was like,
thinking,
what?
yeah, we made the decision thinking this was the best route for that archer, and it turns out it was not.
I don't know how you would know. I don't know how you would know that it was not going to work out. I don't know that there is a specific, it was the same brand of bow. It's not like you switched to a different brand. It just something with that bow just didn't work.
But I think what it is it's more of a maybe pride a little bit as a coach, like saying like, hey, I recommended it. It can't be the bow. It has to be the archer. Also, you don't want to let down the person that pays you as a coach, them as paying you as a coach to make these decisions, even though that we're human. Like, I say we're human. I keep on saying it's a mistake. It's not really a mistake. We're picking the bow. It could have been the perfect bow ever for Julia or this other girl. It could have been perfect for them. But it wasn't. So my point is that us as parents, I'm going to put my parent hat on. We need to make sure our coaches understand understand that we're willing to spend whatever it takes to get them back to where they were. I mean, I'm not saying, hey, you have to lay down $1 million, but it's kind of like the example of
Because I don't have it.
right. You know, my daughter shoots Olympic recurve. I went to one of the booths in Vegas and I said, okay, what tab size should I get her? And so he goes, how old is she? I was like, well, she just turned 13. He's like, okay. So he puts her hand down and he goes, she's a small, but I recommend you get the medium because she'll grow into it. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna I'm
Go
not
with
gonna
the small.
I'm
What
gonna
fits
go
her
with the
now?
small. Like, why would I go with the medium? It's like, well, it'll save you some money.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not into saving $60 for
You're bougie.
for 4 months of, let's just say she outgrows it in 4
Yeah.
months. Like, I'm not going to spend because I feel like it's a waste of money because in 4 months I've lost 4 months of time with her trying to learn her tab that's too big for her hand. That would be like putting
Right.
Julia in a release that's too big for her hand, knowing that, you know what, she'll grow into it in the next 6 months. No, you're not going to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to spend the money now to get what fits her now. And I think that's the same. We have to have that same mentality for everything that we do. This bow is not working. We need to regroup and get the right bow because one thing is we're going to lose her, meaning she's just going to give up on archery if this thing's not going to work. You know, we got to get her back to where she was.
She was really frustrated. You know, I keep thinking back and, the rear mirror is smaller for a reason, yada, yada, yada. But
Monday morning quarterbacking.
Like, man, I really should have pushed, because she placed, what was it, second at Gator Cup. And I was thinking, how well would she have done everywhere had I said, no, we got to go back to the bow. And so as a parent and knowing how frustrated she was and how she wouldn't even want to go practice and, which that compounds things. So yeah, even as a parent, I do the same thing. I'm like, looking back, what would have happened? Well, I don't know. Might have been the same outcome.
Well, it was tough. It's a tough decision because we're in the middle of outdoor season. Like, when do you make that decision? That's kind of the question here is like, when do you make that decision? We made that decision right after the last outdoor shoot. We're like, let's regroup because it's not as easy as just saying, all right, let's just put this bow together and go try it. Like, we got to give it a fair shot. I mean, you got to get the strings right. You got the tuning right. You got to do all that stuff to make sure that this bow is performing like it should. And turned out that bow was actually too small, so we ended up having to extend the draw length on the old bow to get it right, which was then a 1/4 inch shorter than the other bow, but the other bow was, a longer 18. So we were playing around just to get that thing right. So it did take us a little while.
Which makes me want to do what, Scott? What do I want to do?
Makes her want to throw up. She wants to throw up anytime there's stress. If a release is dirty and not doesn't look right, and I'm trying to clean it, oh no, she's like, I think I'm going to throw up.
So it's probably good that you weren't there. What was it, last weekend? And when she had to get a new release, and because you probably would have been like, "No, I can fix it." Bring out the big old hammer.
No, not on that one. I don't mess around with that release. No. Like that's why Ryan.
Okay.
That's why Ryan had. That's why Ryan had 2 of them. He had 2 of them ready to go.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They say that one can be repaired, send it back and get it repaired, and then you have a backup. I don't know. But yeah, that was another thing. She's like, I don't know. It's going off too fast. And I tried to adjust it. Yeah. YouTube, by the way. Thanks, Ryan.
Side note.
By the way, Adam.
Wendy's like, hey, Ryan, can I'll pay you to teach me how to adjust this? And he's just like, go to YouTube. Like, you're turning down money, Ryan?
Yeah. So I am now going to pay Adam to teach me how to adjust it. But yeah, so I had done everything. It still wasn't working right. She was shooting lights out that Monday up at the shop. Tuesday we come home and it's like she's having misses. She didn't have miss. She's having miss. I'm like, what is going on? I don't know. And there starts all that. And I asked the wrong question by asking what's going on. And then so she didn't want me to call Adam because she didn't want to bother him. And Wednesday rolls around. She doesn't want me to bother Adam. I'm like, hey, you've got a tournament this weekend. Tomorrow, I need to call him because tomorrow's going to be Thursday. So she's like, no, it's fine. It's just something I'm doing, or we've got to fix it or whatever. I text him anyway. He tells me what to do. I do everything that he tells me with the bow, everything he tells me to do with the release. No change. She goes to the tournament. She shoots a 299, and I'm like, okay. So I text him, and then like 43 X's, and her, that's way low for her. And so he's like, yeah, something's wrong. Come up here. He was at the shop, and I get the phone call. We have some bad news, but we have some good news. I'm like, oh, great. Give me the bad news.
Where are you anyways?
The release is busted. I was at home. And so the release is busted. I'm like, nice. But they have one here at the shop. It's only 200.
See, that's a good deal. That's a good deal.
So, yeah, I had to buy the new release. But that was another thing, not knowing as a mom, I don't know when a release is busted. I don't know what parts are worn down. I don't know anything about the sear. I know that those can be replaced. I know the little rubber bands can be replaced, but I never knew that it was busted. I didn't know what side was worn down or what it was supposed to look like to begin with. I pay for it and she uses it. That's all I know.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that you do have to keep an eye on is these kids put in more shots than a lot of us realize. And so I was talking to one of the pros in Vegas, and we were talking about, I was like, sometimes I wonder, like, these releases don't last as long as I would expect. And he said, why don't you just step back and count the arrows very quickly?
Right.
Very quickly. He goes, I bet you he's doing, like Ryan is probably putting in easily 10,000 arrows every 2 months, at least 5,000 arrows a month. He's like, those releases, they're built to perform, but they wear out. And that's why, like, he has multiples. We went and bought extra sears for his releases, so he has them in his back pocket whenever he needs them. So that means he's pretty much probably wearing a sear out every 2 months on those releases.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But the sear's only like $10.
So this is our first one. I don't know how we've had that. I don't know how long she's had it, but that's our first one to go through.
And maybe it'll get worse as she practices more. I don't know. But I know she practices a lot too. And that's a good point on the release. Like, when do you make that change? Like, we've talked about bows, but on a release, I think we as parents have to trust our archers sometimes, trust our archers in these situations a little bit, because we're thinking it can't be the release. That's the problem, and we don't want anybody to go directly to, and Julia doesn't go to the equipment. That's really good. I mean, she's really good about that. She never blames the equipment. She blames herself. And and that Ryan was the same way. Ryan has learned part of it is when something's not right, what changed? Kind of like the troubleshooting 101. You go back to where the actual problem is and say, okay, in this case, it's like it's clicking weird. She knows she's shot this thing probably 20,000 times. So she knows that something's not right. And that us as parents probably have to step in a little bit and just push them, because even in her case, I said, you're trusting that there's something not right. Like, we believe that, like, there's no question about that. And so for us as parents should probably step in a little bit and say, okay, something's not right. Let's get a second opinion. because she went to,
Right.
no, it's me.
And I'm
It's
glad
me.
I did. Yeah,
Yeah. And
exactly.
and I think that was the right answer. You get a second opinion. If he had come back and go, yeah, it's her. Well, then you can kind of
Yeah.
regroup, But
Right.
I think it more times than not, I find that it actually is the equipment. I know it's going to be people are going, oh no, you're just full of crap. But I think that there's a lot of times on these these archers at this level, a kid that's beginner first year, I totally understand. It's not the equipment. More than likely, it's probably the kid. But when you have these kids that are putting in 5,000 and 10,000 arrows every couple months, now you've got to believe them that there's something not right, and we need to see those. What's the word? Those red flags. I've
Right.
learned over the years. We've gone a long time with him saying something's wrong, but then when I ask, like, hey, let's have somebody look at this. Let's see if it's this. Let's do. No. It's me. It's me. Well, guess
Right.
what? It wasn't him.
Then she didn't want to bother him. I said, I will pay him if he needs to do a video or something. I'll pay for his extra time on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, knowing, like you said, trusting that it's not always them, that it might be the equipment, and then pushing, going like, hey, let's get that second opinion to see what's wrong. Because had she kept shooting it, her mental game would have been thrown off. And
Yep.
so we got the new release. She went the next day and shot her average. So
And it felt good.
she's like, huh. I was like, look at that.
And so now it's on mom to get that release repaired.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't even know where it is. I guess I need to ask about that.
Hey, I've got like 4
We'll
or
have to
5
talk
of them
about
at
that
the
later,
shop.
Scott.
I have like 4 or 5 more if you just want to buy a second one, or third one. If that's
Yeah,
what you want to
yeah. Thanks.
do. Have $600 in releases.
Oh man, I've got to have arrows brought up there and redone. I don't know. The points are falling out. The fletchings are falling off. I'm like, you're not shooting a single spot. What's going on? So we've
tearing
got
these things
8
up.
good arrows right now. I'm like, how is this happening? But yeah.
Oh,
it's
speaking of
always
arrows.
something.
I'll go on a little rant right now, but like buying arrows, like Easton arrows right now, we can't get them. Like for those low poundage
That's what
arrows.
I heard.
Yeah. So Ellie's down. Like I see she's down. I was like, only reason why I ordered arrows was because I was like, hey, we need to get ready for outdoor season. So because I don't want to scrape off all the indoor feathers off her
Right.
arrows and then put different ones
Yes.
on for outdoors. I was like, I'll order some more. I'm hoping we get them by outdoor season. I'm sure I will, but I ordered them probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they're still
I
showing
heard
out of
they are
stock.
taking extremely long. Yeah, I heard that this weekend.
So if you're listening to this podcast,
People were scrounging up arrows.
if you've made it this
Get
far,
your arrows.
if you made it this far, order your equipment.
If you have learned anything, order your stuff now.
Yes. Don't wait. Don't wait at all. If you're going to need new strings for outdoor season, get it ordered right now. Let's get ahead of all of that.
Oh my word, I haven't even thought about strings. Yeah.
Yeah, her strings are probably in terrible shape right now too. Oh no, we put new strings on there, didn't we?
No, I was thinking, I was
you're
like,
right.
I thought we
You're
got
right.
new ones
We
because
did
they
get
were
new strings.
fraying.
We did get new strings. I was just like thinking,
Yes.
man,
So I
at
had to
this
be
point, they're
I had to
terrible.
be okay on strings.
Yeah, you're good on strings. You're good on strings right now. Halfway through outdoor season,
That's
that's
the
when you have
one
to
thing
change.
I'm good on. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the other thing I would do is, so speaking of when to change, just start looking at the bow and making sure that everything is in good working order. Wendy brought up a good example. Like last year, she didn't go to Vegas this year. Boo, boo. But she didn't go
There
to
was
Vegas.
a lot of things that happened. Oh, I know. My cat got sick too. So I had to take the cat to the vet that Saturday. Yeah, Luke and I took her. So yeah.
Well,
Julia's release on Sunday, also on Saturday. Everything happened on Saturday for us. But
sorry, that's about 30 seconds. You guys won't get back. So let's get back to archery.
yeah, okay.
So we had the exact same situation with another one of our archers that you had. So she shot day one. She shot pretty good. I mean, she actually shot really well. And so she's excited about day two. I said, I didn't get to look at her bow beforehand because I try to look at everybody's bow just to do a once over before they shoot. I grab her bow, I grab her sight, and it just rattles up and down. And she says, I said, this needs to be fixed. And she's like, no, I don't want you to touch anything because, it shot good
Too late.
yesterday.
Scott already touched it.
And I said, I'm sorry, but
It's not gonna do it now.
you got to get it fixed. So that's what they did. They went right to the Excel booth, and it was an easy fix. Like and then the thing was rock solid.
Yep. Yeah. That's what they did. There was something that had worn out in Julia's. It was an Excel that she had. And they just took it and, like you said, boom, boom, boom.
Yep. Replaced the one little piece.
Off we went.
Yeah, it was back to where it needed to be. That's a good reminder to go ahead and check all your equipment and make sure that it's all in good working order. With releases, I know that it's expensive, but it's highly recommended to have that second release ready to go. Because Julia, if she was practicing and she had some issues, she could have grabbed her other release and go, there is something wrong with this release. So she has
because it was from one day to the next.
Yeah, and that's how it happens.
She had a lesson with Adam on Monday, and then on Tuesday, couldn't shoot.
Yeah, and I think that's normal.
Crazy.
Yeah, I don't think it's not like it slowly gets bad.
Yeah, I'm over here like, it's crazy, and you're like, oh, it's normal.
It's like a mousetrap. It just, it's bad now.
What kind of normal is that for you?
Oh, I have an archer. I know what's normal.
Not normal in my world. I see. Normal for me is things gradually go wrong, not just like overnight. It sits in the pouch and goes, you know what? I'm not going to work tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, we bought one thing. I'm just going to go off on I'm going to go off track just a little bit. But one thing in Vegas that we ended up buying for Ellie was Conquest stabilizers, and those things So when I first, when I set her bow up, we didn't realize if she'd be serious or not. So I have all this gear that we're just piecing together, stuff that's sitting in the back and all this stuff. So she's shooting pretty good. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to upgrade her stabilizers. So I upgraded her stabilizers. She hated them. Like, she absolutely hated them. Like, she ended up shooting it for a little bit, for a day or two, and then said she just wanted her old stabilizers back. And one thing I've learned is that stabilizers do make a difference with your sight picture. So all stabilizers are not the same. And we've learned from Ryan that he has shot about every stabilizer that's out there. He's not all. He's shot a lot of stabilizers, and he can tell you how each one of them feels on his, and how they perform for him when it comes to his sight picture and all of that. And
we've only ever shot bee stingers, and she's only switched one time, just going to 2 inches longer than what she had. So yeah, that's another thing. Like, how do you know? I don't even know why you said, oh, she needs a longer stabilizer. So we switched from a 28 to a 30, and
and you know what? A little bit of it is, once you know that an archer gets to a certain level, and we're trying to do certain types of weights on there, we're still trying to look at that mass weight of the bow. That's when you start making some decisions on, okay, should it be a little longer? Should it not be longer? One rule of thumb for me is whatever the draw length is kind of what the stabilizer length should be. For her, she's at 28 and a half. So you really once you go over 28, you really need to probably get to about 30-inch, stabilizer bar. So I ended up buying these Conquest stabilizers, which, side note, we love. Like, these stabilizers rock. My son shoots them. We have multiple people in the shop now shooting them. Heard a lot of good stuff about them for Olympic recurve. We went ahead and bought them in Vegas. And these things, like, I put them on, and immediately I saw a difference in Ellie's groupings got tighter, which is crazy. Like, just from a stabilizer, you could see that it got better. Yeah. She says everything seemed to slow down more, which so that's another thing to encourage you. Like, I know it's expensive to do these, but there's so many people in the archery community that you could try different people's equipment and just see how they perform. For youth particularly, I'm looking for a stabilizer that's light and stiff. It's like I'm looking for these specific things
Right.
when it comes to a stabilizer. Bee Stinger stabilizers are super light. They're stiff. They're great stabilizers. Conquest, they're light. They're stiff. If you look at Shrewd puts out, they're stiff, but I say they're stiff. They're not as stiff as Conquest, but they're heavy. They're kind of a heavy stabilizer. Some guys really like the weight of a stabilizer when it is a little heavier than it being just so light. For youth, what we're finding is it's the lighter the stabilizer, the better if it's stiff enough. So there's this stabilizer, it used to be called a Featherlight. It was super light. We loved them, but once you started adding a little bit of weight to them, to the ends of them, they just bounced around too much. There's just, you would shoot and it'd still be set it, it's still it's still bouncing. I'm over exaggerating a little bit, but that's kind of how it was. So we've talked a lot about when to make that change. We've actually even shifted into, is there value in even checking out other technology, different types of stabilizers on recurve? Does it make sense to change to a different tab? I bought one that was thinner than the other one because I wanted to see would it work better for her if it was thinner. I know that when you come to a finger tab, there's no. We cut it to her fingers, so there's not really
Right.
You're eating that cost no matter what. I think that this all kind of comes down to trying new equipment. Yes, I think there is some value into trying and asking questions about how certain things perform, but I think also it's important to figure out when is it time to regroup, when is it time to when is it time to buy something that they grow into or not. So you have to make a decision, and that's usually a financial decision for a parent. They just have to understand that if you're buying something,
Always a financial decision for me.
but you got to make a decision. Is it worth it to you? Are you willing to spend, all this money on travel? Because I bet you and I probably spent close to just in
Oh gosh, I don't even know.
just in national travel, we're probably looking between $10,000 and $15,000 is my guess.
Yeah. Especially whenever I added in Vegas from last year.
Yeah. When you add Vegas in, you add the other travel in, you're pushing 15 for sure.
Yeah.
So you got to make a decision. Is it? Am I going to chintz out on a $60 tab or a $200 release? No.
Right.
You don't.
Right.
You don't.
No, that's why I said, Trig, here's the card.
Yeah, you're going to make that decision to get what fits them now, not what's going to fit them in 3 months or 4 months or 6 months or a year. When we first bought arrows, we're like, oh, you know what? We'll cut them long so that when he grows, well, who did that? That just helped my pocketbook. It didn't actually help him perform any better, And
Now, wait a minute. You've done that with us, too. You said, we'll cut them long because they're going to grow.
Hey, I've
Are
changed.
we going to leave them long?
I've changed my mind.
Scott has changed. He's a changed man.
That's right. I'm all about winning. Yeah. It's like those
winning isn't
parents
everything,
that
Scott.
make the kids go to a 3 spot instead of shooting a single spot when they should still be shooting a single spot.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. Like they're trying to protect the arrows instead of protecting the archer as far as I'm concerned, because you go to these competitions. You don't go to these competitions to keep from breaking an arrow. You go to these competitions to win.
Right.
And
Well, that was me before we went to a 5 spot or a 3 spot. I was like, no, we just keep shooting this. We keep shooting this. And I kept buying arrows. But
right. Yeah. And I'm all for that. I had a parent recently saying that they really wanted to go to a 5 spot because they got tired of the archer tearing up arrows. And I said, this is not about They're not ready for a 5-spot. You have to just budget that you're going to have to buy another dozen arrows, and they're like, okay.
Dang it.
Dang it.
Order them now.
Yeah. We spend a lot of money. I mean, like, I know I keep harping on it, but we spend a lot of money on training. We spend a lot of money on all this equipment. And I just don't want any of us to come into this sport thinking that, you know what, I'm just going to buy this one thing and that's it. It's just not it. If you want your archer to be an elite archer, it takes that.
And I get it. The amount of money that most of the equipment cost is a large lump sum, where the training, like you talk about, you're talking about, $55 a week or something like that. So you don't see that leave your pocketbook or come out of your paycheck, that, that
dramatically
lump sum that you have there. Yes. But man, when you pull out that card for that new release, or, you pull out the card for the new bow, and you're like going, okay, it's peanut butter and jelly for a week, y'all. No more Starbucks. Or
no more Starbucks. That's how you pay for it. Just cut on the Starbucks.
There you go. You do what you got to do.
Yep. Well, I hope everybody.
Those are the important things.
Yeah. I hope everybody got some value out of this podcast. I think that there is
right.
Definitely us, as I'm going to put my parent hat on, but as a parent, we have to be able to help coordinate coordinate those decisions. We need to make sure our coaches know that we're here. Like I had a conversation with Ellie's coach, just saying, hey, we're here to, we want to go national. We're wanting to compete national. Mm-hmm. So don't slow play this. If you think there's going to be a change that needs to be made and it's going to affect this tournament, you let us make the decision if we want to affect that tournament or not. Because our ultimate goal is not to win a state championship. Our goal is to win a national championship, and we will lose the state ones all day long to prepare for the big tournament.
Yep. And that's what the question was whenever we were going into it. You said, okay, what's the end goal? Okay, this is where you want to be. And then same thing with Adam. Adam said, okay, we're going to make some changes, going into this bow. We're going to make some changes to it. And he was like, what's the next tournament? Okay, our next large tournament is going to be February. All right, she'll be ready by then. That's what we're going to do now. So
yeah, not to keep this podcast going, but you and I had that conversation because you were always very stressed over making changes before any tournament. And so every time we wanted to make a change, you're like, oh, I don't want to make a change because we have this in 2 weeks, or we have this in 3 weeks, and this. And so you and I had to have that conversation of, well, what's our ultimate goal?
Right.
Like, I get that.
Yep. And so I had to ask her, what's your goal?
Yeah. I know that we all like to be state champions, but if we can never make a change, that's all we can get you to is the state level.
Right.
And at some point you have to actually take your lickings, we have to make big changes.
Exactly.
Take the lickings and for the greater good,
Right. And it's like, okay, she's won indoor nationals 1 year. She wants to do it again. She wants to win outdoor nationals. So it's like, okay, well, we got to make changes on things. And I think I'm getting better at it.
Oh, you're getting way better. You're getting way better on it.
Yay! I get a gold star. I'm telling you, parents need rewards.
They do. They do.
Yes.
We need to come up with the Wendy reward system.
There we go. I get a sweet tea every time I do something.
Yeah. We'll sell $5 Starbucks cards for you for $10.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you at the next target.
All right, and that is all for this episode of Raising an Archer.